Hello, my name is Mary Carmichael from homeschoolfliphouse.com, and I'm so pleased to be here with you today to talk about homeschool interior design. I want to dedicate this talk to Our Lady of Loretto, and I pray that she helps us to cultivate all of our homes so that they're more like the Holy House of Loretto, where she lived in her childhood, received the Annunciation, and where the Holy Family, according to tradition, raised our Lord in his childhood. Having said that, I would like to tell you a little bit about myself and my project, and then talk about the concepts behind homeschool interior design. So I'm a homeschooling mother, a second generation homeschooling mother of four. My oldest is 4 and my youngest is 7 weeks. And I'm also a convert from a Baptist background and an alumna from Ave Maria University. And after I graduated from college, I took a job and I also flipped houses on the side in order to pay off my student loans quickly. And then 5 years ago, I married a North Carolina farmer and I stopped flipping houses because the babies came quickly. 4 babies in 4 years. I did, however, have one house left over, which I simply rented out until the beginning of last year when the tenant moved out. And I decided, well, I'll probably sell it. So I had just found out I was expecting our fourth, and I took my toddler trio to this rental house during the day. We would go there and do the light renovation work, ripping out the carpet, painting the walls, things like that. And we enjoyed so much having a place to go outside of the house. We didn't really have much of that in my small southern town. There's really not many places to go. So we were enjoying this so much that I began to think, wow, this would be an amazing place to bring them during the day for homeschool. And I began to dream of flipping it into a dedicated homeschool space. And I took that to my husband, and he generously allowed me to undertake this project. Then I discovered that there are no homeschooling families in our town at all. So I also decided I wanted to blog and vlog our journey so that we could hopefully connect with other amazing homeschool families. So it's just a privilege to be talking to you at the Catholic Homeschooling Conference. So having told you about that, I just want to briefly tell you about the floor plan for our schoolhouse. We have this house is small. It was built in 1937. It's got a lot of charm to it. It's just 5 rooms and it's just over 1,000 square feet. You can go to the website if you want to see the floor plans. The master bedroom is being flipped into a family chapel. The other bedroom is becoming my office as teacher and principal, which is great. The living room is being flipped into essentially a humanities space, anything to do with the reading and writing. And I'm also designing it in large part, thinking about creating a read aloud space. Thank you, Sarah McKenzie, for your amazing work there. The dining room is being flipped into the space where we're going to do everything with numbers. So math, business, salary negotiations, eventually everything that we would learn about numbers is going to take place in that room. And the kitchen we just demoed. I did not want the temptation of cooking and having dirty dishes in there. So we've just got a minimal snack mini fridge space we're going to put in. And we are putting in a utility sink there and making the former kitchen the space for everything messy: science projects, art projects, painting. That's essentially what we're doing with our floor plan. But as I began working with this blank slate, I thought, well, what would an optimal homeschool space look like? What are the best principles for designing for a learning space? And as I researched that, I realized there's a lot of data on that for the institutional level. And of course, we have a plethora of information for creating beautiful, relaxing spaces for the home. But there wasn't really anything in the middle for homeschool interior design where I could take principles and apply them to my unique home with our unique family and the unique temperaments of my children. So I'm working slowly but surely on creating homeschoolfliphouse.com as a resource for homeschool interior design. For homeschooling families. And I hope you'll check it out and that it can help you. So I want to now switch to talking about sort of the broad elements for homeschool interior design that you can incorporate in your space, and also the insights that we can have from studying the 4 temperaments. I think that we really need to start with light. As I began researching, I studied some fascinating things, the research data on the effects of light on learning, and it's profound. One study showed that optimal lighting, like close to daylight lighting, during a test could impact students as much as 22 percentage points on the outcome of their test. You wouldn't want to have that all day because then their performance started to decline. It was too exhausting. Then I saw that in the residential side of things, designers were saying, oh, in interior design, lighting is everything. And then I thought, well, even God started with let there be light, right? Um, so you can go to my website and you can watch, if you'd like, a video interview I did with Randy Fielding of Fielding International. I reached out to him because he's one of the top experts in the design of school spaces. He's designed schools in over 50 countries. And I asked him every question I could find on light related to homeschool environments. How do you light a dark basement with no windows, so no natural light? How do you assess the light in your own unique home? And you can go view that video if you want for the particular answers to the questions. He was so helpful. And the key thing there is, I think you need a variety of lighting. So for high focus tasks, you want to have daylight light bulbs. But for more relaxed tasks, you want to have softer, warm light. And you can download a free light meter app on your phone and go around your house with your kids to learn about how well each room is lit, and then incorporate variety from there. But start with light. The next thing that I want to say is there's really sort of a fad right now of minimalism. And decluttering is important, but as homeschooling mothers, I think that we need to think about it not so much as decluttering or minimalism for itself, but really that we are editing the attention of our children and our families. So we want to look at, what do we want our children to be focusing on in the home? When we look at the sight lines in our home, for example, these visual elements are in our home prompt certain thought content, or they can. What are the thoughts that we want to be prompting in our children? It's very important to consider that, as you'll see a little bit later in the talk, from the perspective of each of the child's temperaments. But nevertheless, I really would encourage a thorough decluttering, like taking time to do that well, from the perspective of, what thoughts do I want to cultivate in the home? What attention, what things do we want to give our attention to? And the things that we don't want to have attention are extraneous and in the way. And they are holding the time and attention that we would give to the things that matter, and to the connections that matter. If we are having to clean up all the time, we're not connecting with our kids, and things become more stressful, and time is more hard to come by. So there's light, there's the importance of decluttering. Then the other thing that we can consider is how things are arranged in the home is really important for cultivating habits. So if you have a bad habit that you're trying to break, you can change the environment to sort of help disrupt the habit. But if you have habits of virtue or of specific kinds of work in your homeschool that you're trying to acquire, you can arrange the space to facilitate that habit. James Clear wrote a book called Atomic Habits. It's really popular right now. I'm sure many of you have heard of it. But he said in that book that environment is the invisible hand that shapes human behavior. And he talked in there about the role of willpower. And he said that, we think of the most successful people as the people who have the strongest willpower. And that's actually not true. It's the people that is important. The studies show that is important. But what is even more important is the people who were most successful were exposed to the fewest temptations. Basically, what that means is that their environments facilitated their goals. They made the good things they were trying to do easy to do. This is like the runner that lays out their running clothes for the next morning before they go to sleep. So in our homeschools, we should be thinking the same thing. If we're working on a particular habit or dedication to a specific subject. How can we arrange things in the home to cultivate our attention in that area or to cultivate a specific habit? I think that's really important because as homeschoolers, we're raising saints. That's really the core of the why for homeschooling, is because our children are receiving this amazing grace to become a saint. We are too. But we're also, as parents, receiving the amazing grace to help those children on that journey to personal sanctity. So we know that raising saints requires that grace, and the children, of course, they retain free will. But we also know that grace builds on nature, and there's a lot that we can do in cultivating nature to be maximally cooperative with that grace that we're receiving and with the grace that our children are receiving. So when you're arranging the things in your home school, the furniture and the images in the sight lines, the photos that you're displaying that cultivate specific memories, we ought to keep that in mind. Is this cooperating with the grace for personal sanctity? Is this going to facilitate habits of virtue? Is this cultivating joy? Um, I think that's very important. I think that we should think of furniture in our spaces as facilitating connections. Um, that is something that's really lacking in our world today. But, this goes beyond just creating read aloud spaces, which is very important. But we can even think of it as, for example, in the father and son relationship, is there a space for them to cultivate their bond? It's such an important bond. We all know that a major part of what is missing in society is sons being formed by their fathers. So are we as mothers cultivating spaces where that bond can really develop and grow? Maybe this is a space for tools or a specific project they're working on or a book they're reading together. But a place that's theirs. I think that's an important thing to think about in our homeschools as well. The other thing that we should do is consider beauty, not just from HGTV's perspective, this is attractive, but as a way that we empower God. I heard that from Michelle Benzinger on the Abiding Together podcast, and I thought that was beautiful. Beauty is a way that we empower God. And then I heard Saint Jose Maria Escriva say that joy is the fertile soil for evangelization. And I thought, yes, this is right. Our homeschool spaces need to have touches of beauty. Of course, there's going to be chaos, especially with large family. Of course, there's going to be messes. But are there also touches of joy? Because joy is what makes the burden light, right? It's what makes us want to do things. So everything that we're doing in our homeschooling is geared towards the Logos, the Word, having fertile soil in which to produce fruit hundredfold. And that's less likely to happen if we don't have touches of joyful things in our environment and connections that create joy in our homes. And these things are powerfully affected by how we arrange our spaces, the color that we use, and just the little touches that we put on things. So really think about that as you're cultivating your homeschool space. I want to speak to the moms out there who might be doubting in their own abilities a little bit to homeschool. And I think that's something we probably all struggle with at some point or another, a bit of an imposter syndrome, perhaps we might call it. And I want to encourage you to do something really practical, which is just like if you had a corporate office and you hung your diplomas behind you, I want you to get out your degree and get out every certificate of achievement and the things that remind you that you are capable, and create a wall where you hang those things just like you would in a corporate office. I think that's important for you to see. Go there, look at these things, these achievements and accomplishments when you're doubting yourself. And I think it's important for your children to see. You're not just mom, you're an amazing mom, but you've also achieved these other things. On my own wall, in addition to my diploma, I have a picture that one of my nieces drew me of me holding my newborn, and she wrote Supermom on it, and it touched my heart so much. And I hung it next to my diploma. I think it's really important to have reminders like that. You can do that for anything. If your child has an insecurity, you can hang something that reminds them of an achievement on the wall for them to see, to remind them, hey, I did that. I can do this too. The last thing I want to close with is some remarks on the four temperaments, because these are really powerful in our homeschools, in cultivating saints, in arranging nature to be receptive to grace. When you learn about the four temperaments, you realize each one of these temperaments has particular strengths. They're also prone to particular weaknesses. There's no temperament that's better than another. Certain temperaments clash really strongly. If you are a melancholic mom with a sanguine child, you're going to clash. If you're a phlegmatic mom with a choleric child, that's a strong clash. It's very empowering tool as a homeschooling parent to know about the temperaments, but it also profoundly impacts your homeschool interior design, because what you begin to realize is that, okay, so if being a saint involves acquiring specific virtues, once I know the particular, Father Ripperger talks about this. If you know a particular weakness for that temperament, then you say, okay, part of God's will for me is to say, well, the virtue opposite to this weakness is what I'm called to cultivate right now. That will help me on my journey towards personal sanctity. So once you learn your child's temperament, you say, oh, I know that this rewards, for the sanguine, for example, rewards motivate this child. How can I incorporate small rewards, maybe even something as simple as putting a prominent check mark on a to-do list? How can I incorporate small rewards into our homeschooling design and environment to help motivate this child? To use the example of the sanguine again, they love variety of things. They're highly externally stimulated by bright colors and a variety of things, and music and activity. So you can think about how to allow them some variety of where they do their schoolwork, or some bright colors to sort of draw them in, little changes that you can make to help them in their homeschooling journey. And you can also think about, okay, so that motivates them and draws them in. But then I want to help them to overcome their propensity to not finish what they start. So how can I simplify the environment at the same time to help them focus on one task at a time and completing what they start, and eventually learning to complete each thing with excellence? That's just one example. As you learn about the temperaments, you're going to see how each temperament is motivated by unique things, and you can incorporate those things into the environment and work with that temperament to draw them into learning, but then also strengthen them in virtues that they might not be naturally strong in, so that they're supported in their journey to become a saint. So that's the core of what my project is with Homeschool Interior Design. I hope that it was helpful to you. I hope that you can think about your own environment as a curriculum, as a place where you are raising saints for the church militant, at a time in the history of the church where saints are so needed. Your work as a mom is so important. Each of you are irreplaceable in the lives of your children. You're an inspiration to me. I hope that you'll be able to visit my website, homeschoolfliphouse.com. Let me know what questions you might have about homeschool interior design, how to handle certain colors, or design a specific environment, or handle challenges of limited space or organization. I'd love to hear from you. I'd love to help you. And I hope that you have an amazing homeschool journey for the rest of this year and beyond. God bless you, and please pray for me. Thank you.